Hi everybody, welcome to Evening TV. So today I wanted to talk to you about giving people the benefit of the doubt. Now, this was always a way that I had lived, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to assume the best until they showed you that there was some reason not to. And I have come to believe, and part of this too was that I really didn't want to believe, I didn't want to be a negative person. I didn't want to let negativity and cynicism seep in. I felt that those were, if that was just a way I didn't want to live, that was a negative way to be. And not only that, it was possibly an unfeminine way to be. And the interesting thing was, too, is that I think that I was naturally drawn to men who weren't like that. And in fact, this is how I ended up hooking up with numerous abusers, one after the other. The three in a row that took place over the course of about 16 years were men that I was largely attracted to because I felt like they were savvy. I felt like they were street savvy, that they could, they were the kind of guys that would go in and they'd want to sit with their back against the wall and be able to see the whole restaurant or whatever. That they were always really going to be aware of what was going on, and that made me feel like they could keep me safe. These were all, the thoughts were kind of in the right place because I had an awareness about myself, had an awareness about the kind of person that I was, and not only was, but wanted to be. I wanted to be able to be a person who could basically hold on to my sweetness and my innocence and then have let this be like a masculine quality that he could take care of me, and he was that way. And so I didn't mind that, and I really was not attracted at all to, and I think this is partly why I was attracted to men who I thought had been brought up with a rougher background than me. That I think I was drawn to men that I thought had a rougher background than me because that would give them this street savviness. And I didn't want to have to be the one who was in the protector mode because I didn't think that I was particularly good at it, and I just didn't want to have to be that person. I wanted someone else protecting me. Well, this really backfired, of course, because while it's true no one else harmed me, they harmed me. I mean, the person who I had put in the role of being the one who was going to look after me turned out to be the abuser. And on the occasion when I was married to the one that would last the longest, of course, when he came in as saying he would always have my back, he would always be on my side, because I came right off the bat telling him about my family right from the very start. And so I let him right in. I made myself really, really vulnerable, talking about what my family was like, what I was going through with my family right from the very beginning. But he wasn't protective of me with my family, which was his very first upfront promise to me, was that he would be. In fact, he used them to further his abuse, to abuse me. So what I want to say is that I think that times have changed. If that was ever appropriate in my lifetime, it's not anymore. It's definitely not anymore. I don't think that that's an appropriate, because I've been burned by this now in little ways too, by assuming the best of people and letting them show me otherwise. I think what we have to do instead is we have to take a different approach completely, and we have to not think the worst of people. That's definitely not what we want to do, and that would be negative. That would, thinking the worst of people until they prove otherwise, that would be not a good approach. That would also be a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, if you were walking around paranoid or expecting the worst of people. And I've seen people do that. I've seen people where they're expecting the worst of people, and they actually drive people nuts. They make bad things happen because they think they're cheating or they're going to screw me over, and they do make bad things happen. So you don't want to do either one. I think you want to withhold any judgment. You want to enter into things and be careful what you're disclosing, and disclose things as a need to know basis, and keep keep kind of a scorecard until you get comfortable with how people are. And if they do things that are not, that just don't feel right to you, keep a little tally going, you know, and have kind of them on a watch list, you know, in your mind. That, you know, I'm not completely comfortable with them, I'm watching them, you know, I'm going to wait and see before I'm suspending judgment, I'm going to wait and see. I don't have enough to say, I don't want them around, but not completely comfortable. And the other thing is, too, is that there are people that we're comfortable with only in certain contexts, and that's okay, too. So, you know, if there's someone that you like to play golf with, say, or there's someone that you like to go talk to someone, the person that does your hair, you know, you enjoy going there. You can hang out to talk with them once a month for a couple of hours, but you're not going to invite them, you know, maybe into your home, or you're not going to have your kids hang out together with their kids. Or a good example is there was this one friend who was just brilliant. She was really, really funny and really a good person, you know, fun person to hang out with. But she was really, she had certain insecurities, certain personality traits about her that made her really competitive when it came to men. And so she had a long history of falling outs where she would, you know, had stolen friends' boyfriends, you know, and things like that. So she was the kind of person that I could hang out with, and I thought was funny. She was in the same field that I was in, and she was a little further along, and so she was just really good for me academically and professionally and things like that. And also I just really liked her sense of humor and hanging out. But she was not somebody who I would ever have had around my family or had around my husband or my boyfriends. And that's okay. You know, these are ways that I've evolved, and it's, you know, part of growing up. I hate to say it, you know, it really is. It's not just becoming paranoid or becoming negative or cynical. It is really just kind of growing up. It's realizing that a lot of things that have happened in my life happened not, I didn't deserve for them to happen. They were completely unfair, but the reality of it is that not everybody plays by the same rules that I do. And I'm going to even go so far as to say not everybody plays by the right rules, because I believe that I play by rules that are, you know, the person should have integrity, they should tell the truth, they should do the right thing, they should do, you know, they should be responsible for their actions, the things they say and do, they should win through hard work and, you know, not by cheating and all that stuff. And I'm going to go so far as to say that that's the right way to do it. That's why I do it that way, because that's what I believe. But not everybody plays by those rules. Not everybody does it the same way. And so, you know, do you have to cut yourself off from every single person? No, and that's not even realistic. You can't do it even if you wanted to. You really can't. You have to, you have to get in there and play the game. And it is a game. Here's the other thing. It is a game, and you are playing. Whether or not if you're, you're playing so long as you're alive. You know, and so the sooner that you kind of come to terms with that, the better. This is another thing I didn't want to do. I didn't think, oh, I'm not a game player. I don't want to play games. I want to, but you are playing. You're in a game, and you are playing. And so the sooner that you get smart about the fact that not everybody is following the same rules you're following, and and how many times I'm kind of coming to this after thinking about how many times, in little ways and in big ways, I've been really screwed over by people. And it wasn't just the big one. It wasn't just like the big bad husband thing that happened. People that have hired to do work for me, or different things like that, where it seems like I've had more than my fair share of things, of people taking advantage. And since having might have come to notice it more since I've had a little bit more money and ways that people could take advantage of me, but just noticing how much they will, and that people just don't necessarily have the same code of ethics that I do or that you do, and so that it really is your responsibility. You're not going to change the world, and so it's your responsibility to protect yourself. And to not make yourself vulnerable to that, and to not risk more than you can afford to lose. You know, this is the other thing. And so that is too what I can say, is that where I did risk things, it was never more than I could afford to lose. Recently, I guess it's really true altogether, and because I'm still here. But anyway, so that's basically what it is. This is basically coming, and you know, I really have this firm belief too that there's things that like you avoid wanting to know because it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like that's not the world I want to live in. But I really believe that we want to know the truth, and we feel better once we're dealing with the truth. And so once I just put it out there, once I just say, people aren't always playing the game fair. People aren't always following the same code that I follow. People aren't always as good at people as I would hope they would be. They're not as good at people as I would assume they were. And you know, I've had this brutal you know, reckoning, having to come down all the way from my own parents. You know, my own parents weren't as good at people as I believed they were. You know, so once you come to terms with that, it's all basically downhill from there. Everyone got easier after that. But you know, more times than not, I have in my life been surprised when people aren't as good as I expect them to be. And you know, I don't want that to happen anymore. And I have to be more careful and discerning, because you know, I've had the experience now of you know, trying to having my man be the discerning one and I can be the trusting, happy-go-lucky one. That didn't work out so well. Because what's to stop him from being the one that takes advantage of me? And sure enough, he did. And you know, and so it's, you know, it's time to basically grow up and accept that it can kind of be a harsh world. It can kind of be screwed up, and a lot of people aren't that great. They're not that cool after all, and you got to look out for yourself. And it's better to just be smart about it and know that, and just embrace reality. As I always say, embrace reality for what it is, and then you're basically happier. You're basically happier because you're not surprised all the time and disappointed all the time. Because those are really disappointing moments. Usually more than the loss is the loss of faith that you had in that person, or just basically hurt feelings that someone just wasn't as good as you thought they were. And that's, you know, those are disappointing moments. So better to just maybe set it up a little differently, you know, and so that's what I'm going to try and do. So as far as, you know, giving the benefit of the doubt, I say, if that was ever the way to be, it's not anymore. That's not the times we're living in. And so it's not to make any judgment. It's not to judge badly on a person or not to judge good on a person. Just be neutral and let them prove who they are to you. And when a person tells you who they are, listen. Believe them. When they tell you who they are, believe them. I have numerous stories on my channel about when I didn't do that. And I have one in particular that maybe you've seen it. It's a really short little video. And it's about my second date with my husband. And I tell you what, if there is a regret I have in my life, it is that I chased him, I followed him. He left. I fell off a bar stool, and he left. And I will always regret that I didn't just let him leave. That I didn't just let that be the end of it. What a world of hurt that would have saved me. But after he left, I found him. I acted like it was nothing, and we went on and we got married after that. And I mean, and then talk about later when I fell and he left me in a big way. Did he ever? He pushed me up and then left in a big way later. And so when people show you who they are, believe them. Don't try and assume that they're better than you think they are, better, you know, that they are like you. That's exactly what I was doing. I was thinking, you know, he can't be that bad. It can't really be the way that it looks, because he just can't be that bad. And I needed him to not be that bad. I felt like I needed somebody, and he was the somebody there, and he was telling me that, you know, he was crazy about me, and I wanted him to be who I needed him to be. And so I was not looking I was not looking at him objectively, and it was a big, big mistake. So really, really check yourself and let people, when people tell you who they are, believe them. And they tell you in their actions and not in their words, although they will also tell them stuff in their words too. So, all right. Thanks a lot, you guys. I will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.